Hey guys, redch0psticks here. Let's talk about Maleficent. The name alone brings back all kinds of memories from the Disney film Sleeping Beauty as the main villain. If not that, then Kingdom Hearts fans will remember this being the villain who brought all the other Disney villains together and led them, which was perfect for her. So when the movie Maleficent starring Angelina Jolie came out, I had to admit I rolled my eyes. But at the same time, my interest was caught, so I decided to check it out. So is this film worth checking out, or did someone grab someone's fanfic and decide to make a film out of it? Let's start with Maleficent, played by Angelina Jolie, and I'll be fair, she's trying really hard, and she does a decent job. When she needs to be dark or quiet at certain times, she does a good job. And there's even a time where she's, for lack of a better word, trolling people. Again, good job.
I must say, I really felt quite distressed at not receiving an invitation.
You're not welcome here.
But her biggest fault is when she needs to play the character as a happy one. It just feels really forced, and I don't think that's Angelina's fault. I think it's Maleficent's fault. This is one of Disney's greatest villains, and to have her being happy and having a good time just seems really odd. Speaking of villains, let's talk about King Stefan, played by that guy who did the main character from District 9. And I'm sorry, he's way over the top. He tries to play it way too loud and too forceful at times. I never really took him seriously because of all that. Other characters like a crow turning into a human and the princess, again, do okay jobs. But sadly, the weakest role is the fairies. They're just not as memorable and they come off way too goofy. Granted, they were goofy in the animated film, but they had a personality to go with each one. Here, they all sound the same and you can't tell them apart except for the colors. Visually, the film does very well. Despite only having 3 locations, the castle, the moors, and the cottage, it does well to be memorable in the entire film. This film is also surprisingly very bright and colorful at times. Don't get me wrong, when it wants to have a dark tone, it can. But they don't really stay all that long. The only problem with the visuals is that you can see a lot of CGI. And you can tell it's CGI. Especially on the creatures and on the fairies. They all look so fake, like they're not really there. The story starts with Maleficent and King Stefan's past, and their relationship. Afterwards, it follows the story of Sleeping Beauty with a few added twists. I have to say the backstory is nice, and it gives off why Maleficent is being evil. Though I have to admit, just saying that she's evil because she is evil was just enough for me. About halfway through the film, it follows Sleeping Beauty, and this is where a lot of plot holes sadly show up. One good example is when the fairies come up to give gifts to the princess, but before that, they were the ones that pointed out a human came into the moors and were afraid a war was going to start. And then they randomly show up to form a friendship with the king. Aren't they aware that the king is the one who took Maleficent's wings away? Oh yeah, Maleficent has wings because she's a fairy in this one. Just go with it. There's even a scene where Maleficent finds the princess in the cottage the same day they were trying to hide her. If I recall, didn't she spend 16 years trying to find her in the first place, in the animated version? With that said, they do interesting things in the story. For example, there's a reason why Maleficent picks the age of 16 for the princess to prick her finger on the spinning wheel. And in this film, Maleficent adds in the mercy of adding true love's first kiss to wake her up. But all of this is done for irony's sake for King Stefan, which I have to say is done quite subtly. The third act is sadly the weakest. There's a lot of build up to the climax, but in the end, it's underwhelming. The king seems to be building something so he can battle Maleficent with iron, because in this world, iron burns fairies. Even though all it does is mildly annoy her and she instantly heals from the burns, so what was the point? The king constantly forces his subject to keep building, and what it leads up to is rather simple. Even the fight with the dragon and Maleficent versus the king and his armies are again very dull. There is one more twist that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's when the princess is waking up. And let's just say it's not like the animated version and leave it at that. Final rating for Maleficent? 6 out of 10. This isn't really that bad of a film, it's just not doing anything new. It went where exactly I thought it was going to go. I knew they were going to make Maleficent a good person and the king the villain. The film had a decent start, but as it kept going, it started to lack. Nothing god-awful, mind you, but nothing good either. All the characters seem to be okay, the visuals are bright, and the first half of the film is decent. However, the CGI is way too obvious, the third act is very underwhelming, and again, nothing really that new. All in all, if you find an interest in this film, you might be satisfied with it, but for the most part, I don't think it does anything that good. It's not awful or the worst film, It's just that our expectations were pretty low, and trust me, the film could have been worse. Much, much worse. When this film comes out to home video, for the most part, I think this is a rental title.